So we said, somebody died, somebody was shot, So we saw people being shot and land on the ground. So we say, wow, things fall apart now. So that's who took to Canifing area, went to Gamtel area to attack. In fact, Westfield, there used to be one Gamtel office. I don't know now. Students attacked that place also. The soldiers also came from Fajara barracks. I think confronted them there.
You mentioned firing. Let me take you back for a bit. And you also mentioned that in the morning there was the presence of the PIU. At the time you saw them in the morning, were they having any weapons with them?
Indeed, the PIU were having guns. They were having riot gears, just like a glass form of, and then they had something like on their bodies, just like is I don't know whether they call it bulletproof. I don't know. They were wearing most of those things, and they were having guns. And one of the guns I personally know was AK-47. That's what they call, I think, Andrews Klansnikov 47, 1947.
How did you know that the gun was an AK-47?
Council, I would go into that. I joined the Government National Army as cadet intake, and I left. But I know different types of guns because I study gun, and I study operations also. So I know how the type of guns Gambia was using, and then more especially those type of shotguns and long guns, MC and AK.
You mentioned firing. Do you know when the firing started?
It was early as 7:30 towards 8 in the morning. Yes, exactly the time, because when the leaders were picked up, students were on helter-skelter, confronted with different security setups. Because more especially Westfield area towards Jimpex is where I think you have a Gamtel of Gamtel was around the Westfield, around this hospital, the Johnson there. There was one Gamtel there. I don't know whether they are still guys being the while I've not been in Gambia. That Gamtel was there. Students went there to attack the Gamtel. Perhaps the motive was, I don't know. Not only students, but there were some people who were also putting on Rasta, they call Rastafaris. They were also there with the students in attacking the Gamtel. So we were running. My bicycle, in fact, I threw my bicycle away. I was running with some students. So the soldiers who came from Fajara barracks were there, and the tear gases were used because thick smokes were used. Okay.
You mentioned that the student leaders were first arrested. From your recollection, could you tell whether the firing started before or after their arrest?
No, the tear gas were used. That was the initial firing. The tear gases were used. But the live bullets, when they were used, I have not seen any student leader. The live bullets. Because that one, even if you have not been a service personnel, when you had the gunshot, you know, oh wow, this is live. So this is how it happens. I personally attempted to two of the victims, Lamin A. Bojang and this Red Cross volunteer, Sabao. Because I was there with the man Musa Koli. Musa Koli works at Red Cross. He got this man by the hands and tried to take him to Red Cross, but then unfortunately he could not survive. Lami A. Bojang was a student at high school, was also shot. I attempted him also with some students. The rest I did not, because we are then running for our lives.
Let me just take you back for a bit again. You mentioned earlier they had started using tear gas to disperse the students. And when was this?
This was around 7 towards 7:30. The tear gas was the first to be initially used on the students. So that was why students started running in helter-skelter, because the smoke and then the scent from the smoke was too bad, and then the odor was not good. So they started running away from the security officers. So it was that time when students started converging. Many students started coming from different schools, converging at Westfield, Jimpex. They saw that things were out of hand. So to this to make the students disperse, the only option was to use live bullets. Because tear gas could not stop the students. But the live bullet we had that was first used, we had the noise was around Iceman. Who was shot, I can't remember, but that was at the Iceman area. We had that concert, and preferably that must have come from the PIU because they were the ones that area.
How could you tell that it was live bullets because you didn't see it?
Console, when live bullet is used and when you use blank ammunitions, when you use tear gas, they make different sounds. And in fact, when live bullet is used, you can see the friction of fire. It goes to a distance, and when it drops somewhere, if it falls down on the ground, you'll see thick smoke, and then you hear explosion. So automatically, well, as I told you, maybe other students may not know, but it's not new to me. I knew most of these things.
You also mentioned earlier that you were somewhere around the Red Cross area where Lamin A. Bojang was shot at. Can you please tell us about that scene?
Yeah, Lamin A. Bojang and one Umar, I think Umar Barrow, I think they said he was Red Cross volunteer. Well, he was actually wearing the Red Cross singlet. I don't know. I never knew him as Red Cross volunteer, but then lastly, I knew Musa was telling me this boy is part of us. He was there. The shooting were made. Actually, I can't tell whether people were targeted because they were making open firing. So during the open firing, not in the air, but at the people. So whether they target individuals, I can't tell, but there are shootings. As a result of that, most of the students died and others sustained serious injuries.
At this point, which security outfits were present at the scene? You also mentioned the presence of the military at one point.
The military started from the Westfield area where you have Gamtel, the PIU Canifin area. At the end, they mixed together. When we left that area, we went to Bakote area. That's where I met with Buba Senghor and some soldiers with some, what you call the Gilatan Second youths. They were also there. I recognized two of them. One of them was not wearing uniform, but he was hanging this AK-47, and he wasn't a soldier. 100% I know. He was with Buba Senghor. He works at KMC at the time. They were with one GNA truck called GNA 110. The truck was there. That I can still remember.
You mentioned the July 22nd movement. Who were those?
There was one Aliu Jaju. One Aliu Jaju. This is a short guy. He is black and complex. The age must have been around 40s towards 50s at the time, I suspect. He was there, and he was wearing this short half gown with AK-47 hanging on his shoulder. And I knew him for being a member of the Yachten Second, but he was never a soldier, not even security personnel that I knew. But he was with this guy, Seymour, at the time.
Do you know,
Yes.
for example, where Aliu Jaju lived at that time? Or what he does
No,
for a
we
living?
only, no, I twice, because once we met in Kanilai, the other one was we met this place, Kanifing, with Baba Job, Baba Kajali Job. These two times I remember him, and then he's very close to. He's always at KMC. He was very close to this guy Seymour, Buba Seymour.
And what were those July 22nd boys doing?
Well, it'll be difficult to say. Perhaps they were there to protect the president's interest. That was what I saw. That's how I saw it.
What did you see them doing?
Well, this guy was hanging AK-47 with the rope like this, and Buba was pushing and pulling with some soldiers. What we was pushing and pulling with, I don't know. But later on, I saw them bundling him in the truck over Senghor. So this guy also came very close to the truck and he stood with his gun. But he didn't aim, it was hanging on his shoulder. This what I saw at that place. There was one gang where there was one filling station around there. That's what the Tipa Garage Junction exactly. That was the junction exactly. One goes to Bakote SOS, one goes to Sabiji, where you that's mini turntable there, around about.
And what did you do afterwards?
Well, I saw the situation was very tense there, so I had to leave that area. I trekked towards Serakunda police station. With the intention to go to LK to see what was happening there. So when I left, I met with one KMC commander called Dembo Sani. He's from Bakau. He lives in Bakau. He said to me, Ndoke, where are you from? I said, my brother. He called me junior. Where are you from? I said, senior. This thing has taken different dimension because we have seen different people with different guns. I don't know. He said, let's go this way. I followed him. We scaled the fence at Serakunda police station because the fence was not high, and then parts of it was demolished. We scaled that area. We entered to Serakunda police station. Then he went other direction. I came out from the main gate towards the Serakunda market, facing Westfield again. Yeah.
And what happened eventually?
Westfield, it was too tense there. Firing was made, tear gases were used, lot of smokes were there, tires were burned in the streets. So things were too tense. At the end, I could not proceed towards this place, KMC area. I had to enter that hospital there. I think they called it Dr. Peters Hospital at the Westfield there. I entered there for some time. I came out. Then I took the direction towards this place I call again, LK School. I take that area. I met with Moro Jallo. Moro told me, look, let's go to ICE and see my former school, whether the students are out. Then we take that area, we went to that area to see whether the students were there. So he told me, rush to BSTS and tell me the principal not to open the gate. I rushed to that area also, but before I reached, students were out. So we could not stop the students. Then how I take towards the mosque in the pipeline, that highway, came down to American Embassy. Then I took the other way again towards Latikunda Iringanya.
You mentioned that you saw Lamin A. Bojang and Barrow when they were shot. Did you see any other students that were injured that day?
Well, some were shouting, they shot me. But actually speaking, I have not done it because at that time it was too tense. We are stubborn to see everything, but unfortunately we could not withstand the test of trial because a lot of gunshots were made. So what we had to do was to run away. I saw some students lying down on the ground, but I did not go and see I did not go and confirm what happens to them, definitely speaking.
Do you know if Lamin A. Bojang or Barrow survived the shots they suffered from?
No, both of them died. I think Lamin A. Bojang, in fact, I think he died instantly. The Barrow, I think he was taken inside Red Cross around the gate there. Then the ambulance took him, but finally, I think he could not stand the test of trial. He succumbed to the natural call.
Do you know how many people lost their lives that day?
That day, it was after the incident we realized that most of the people who died were students. And according to when we made our findings, we realized with 4 newspaper, we made findings with 4 newspaper. There was one boy, Patin Jallo. We were always with him in the streets, finding out, hospitals finding out. When we went to the hospital, we found that some students were there, others were in the mortuary. We didn't go to the mortuary definitely, but then we knew they said there were some students lying there who were there as a result of gunshots and the like. others were at the ICU. I think one of them was his from by and Lamin F. Ture. Lamin Ture, I think he finally they cut he was amputated because that guy was going for, according to him, he was going for his visa at the American embassy to go to South America. This thing happens and he was going, and then gunshot was made. Unfortunately, he touched his knee, and I think his leg was cut. I met this from by at the hospital, but I didn't talk to him. They said this is one of the students. It was later on I realized that that was his from by when he made a courtesy call to him in his house when he became president. When I became president of Gamsu in 2002.
Briefly tell us what happened to you after this incident, because we have a very short window here.
Yes, council. It was sad because personally, the government of the Gambia at the time, I was sacked. I was a teacher. I was sacked from my teaching profession because I was on a study leave at the University of the Gambia. My salary was stopped. My service was terminated with the head of with the government, central government. In fact, I was employed at the end when I was sacked. I after my graduation at university, I went to Charles Dow to become to teach there because I was employed there too, Charles Dow Secondary School on Alpha Khan. I taught there briefly for 1 year or so. The second year, my service was terminated because Alpha Khan was in good books of the government, and I was not in good terms with Alpha Khan. So the KMC, it was going KMC school, they stopped my service also. So I had no employment. My service was stopped. My scholarship at university was terminated. I got my scholarship at the university. It was terminated. I lost my compound to the state because the government seized my compound. And again, I was on the role of Social Security Housing Finance Corporation in 2005 to be allocated a plot of land in Jabang. I was called for interview. I went for interview, and then later on, they called me. They said, the plot cannot be given to me. I went there to find out. They said, well, this is a legislative order. We can't do anything. So I lost all my socio-political and economic rights in the country. I had no employment until lastly in 2005 at the end, I applied to work at Gamstar Insurance Company as assistant administrator by Nongo Fall, a brave Gambian businessman for that matter. I must always applaud him because he is somebody who actually loves Gamsu. He was the only Gambian businessman who was always out to help the students, more especially Gamsu. If you go to his office now, you find Gamsu certificates there. Even Yajame was there. You find Gamsu certificates everywhere in his office. He was our personal friend. I got employment there until 2007 when attempts were, because 2006 I was arrested. Last it was terrible. And then when I was released, I was told by a close friend of mine that if I sleep in my house, I would be a dead man. So that's how I left the Gambia, unceremoniously, unexpectedly, for greener pasture. Yeah, actually, my family was also disintegrated. My wife, she was doing her HTC at the time, and then School of Nursing. Her course was almost disrupted. My children could not go to school. My two brothers and my sister-in-law were with me. They had to abandon and go to provinces to stay with different parents because they were haunting me day and night. So I don't want them to become victims of the situation. So they had to go. So my family was disintegrated, and we were barred from taking part in government activities, and even in political organizations like social gatherings. I was deprived of taking part in most of these things. So I was under surveillance 24/7. I had my internet cafe, which was surveillance by one Ibu Ba, NIA officer, operative from the Bundum police station, Bundum NIA. At the end, the NIA had to close my internet cafe, where I had 21 computers, but 12 functional. They arrested me, took all my computers, because that coincided with Freedom Newspaper saga, and then they took my computers away. They gave me one of the computers, the rest were left with them. Up to date, I don't know what they were about those computers. Yeah, actually, it was terrible and bad for me because my family suffered a lot. My parents, my father, in fact, when he died, I was barred from attending his funeral because I was exiled. I could not even go to Senegal at the time. So my father, in my absence, because he had sometimes he had what we call high blood pressure. Because of that, my father died when I left. My one of my brothers also died as a result of the torture method on me because they couldn't withstand being the breadwinner of the family, being in that situation. Now I was jobless. Sometimes we used to go and bake bread from the Tani Highway. There was one bakery. My wife and I, with one of my best friends called Alcalo Jabate, Bakar Jabate, who lives in Bundu, he used to accompany me anywhere I'm going. We go and buy dry bread from there. We come and put it in the milk. We used to buy milk from one called Saw in Bundu. We use that one to eat as our dinner.
I note from your statement you submitted at paragraph 38 that you were arrested 7 times
Yes, Council.
after the incident of April 10 and 11.
April 10. Yes, Council.
And in each of those times, you were harassed and intimidated by security officers.
Yes, Council.
We are running out of time right now, and I just wanted the commissioners to take note of that fact. Thank you very much
Yeah,
for answering
I
all of my
was
questions, and
okay.
thank
Okay.
you for making yourself available on short notice as well.
No problem, Council.
Mr. Chairman, I'll hand over the witness to you for further questions.
Thank you very much indeed, Council, and thank you, Mr. Alhagie Nyabally, uh, for your testimony and for agreeing to come and testify before the Commission. Sorry again, you're another one of those victims who suffered a lot, not just you, but also members of your family. Commissioners, if you have any questions, please indicate. If not, Mr. Nyabally, if you have any concluding remarks to make, please proceed to do so now.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have. Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the TRRC, one of the most credible and noble commissions ever in the history of the world. We have witnessed and read a lot of the commissions set all over, but the Gambia's under Dr. Cisse and Issa Fall is a unique one. And first and foremost, because we had run out of time, um, I will only advise the Gambians from the top brass to the caretakers of the country. We know the TRRC of this commission is not been set to make a joke or witch hunt anybody. If there is anyone to help this TRRC, I think I should be one of the first Gambians to help TRRC, and I would seek for indulgence, Mr. Chairman, so that the Gambians listen to this message carefully and don't take it as political or don't take it as something subversive to the state. This noble commission of TRRC is a commission tasked with the responsibility of discovering and revealing past wrongdoings by the former government with the hope of resolving conflicts left over from the past. The case study of the Gambia is the most special one from the world records. The high caliber and professional personalities like Dr. Cisse, Mr. Isafal, and the rest of the council members, from the investigators to the cleaners. This commission is one of the most noble ones. Let's respect this commission. Let's wait for the outcome of this commission. Many are called, but few are chosen. These people at the high table there, helping the Gambia, they have sacrificed a lot. It's one of the most risky jobs we have seen in Canada and Chile. Most of their commission members were shot to death, were killed. But Gambia being a very peaceful country, these guys have taken the responsibility to serve and help the Gambia government and the Gambians. So let's give them maximum respect and honor so that they complete their mission. Whatever they do, I believe, and I'm sure, they are doing it within the framework of a law. These are all legal practitioners. These are all legal professionally minded. Some are teachers. They have been in the social sector for so long. So whatever they do, let's leave it at that until they make their recommendations. It is left to the citizenry and the Gambians to take an action if the state don't want to take action. Because you can't kill me, kill my parents, kill my people, and you want this person to go scot-free without justice being done. Martin Luther King said, injustice everywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So, Council and Mr. Chairman, one of the cardinal points or reasons for the Gambia's TRRC, this TRRC is very noble, is to return to the victims and survivors their civil and human rights, which were taken away from them from the past 22 years. To restore a moral order, seek the truth and make it known to the nation. To create a culture of human rights and respect for rule of law. Restore sanity and rule of law with the hope that we will never and ever repeat some of these awesome and gruesome mistakes, the tragic mistakes the perpetrators made in the past. Instead of revenge, there will be reconciliation. Instead of forgetfulness, there will be knowledge and acknowledgement. Instead of rejection, there will be acceptance and a compassionate state. Instead of violation of human rights, there will be restoration of moral order and respect for the rule of law for better Gambia. I would like to advise His Excellency, the President of the Gambia, that being the executive head of the country, Mr. President, good governance is accompanied by responsibility. So therefore, Your Excellency, Mr. President, the country does not belong to the executive, it belongs to the Gambians. Let's continue to respect the citizens' rights and the Constitution. If we Gambians don't respect the leaders, leaders will not respect us. But leaders need to reciprocate and respect the citizenry. We have seen how the former President Yahya Jammeh was indemnified, or how he was used as small god of the Gambia. People thought Yahya Jammeh was a small god in the country. People in fact said he appears and disappears. Because I had a concept when I came to Europe. When my house is dark, before I put on my light, I used to think Yahya Jammeh would be in my house because I was afraid completely, totally afraid, because of the tortures made on me in the Gambia by the National Intelligence Agency and the other security outfits. From there, the stakeholders, one need to learn to be respected and be respected, to be sincere and show sincerity. As Muslims and Christians, to be kind to those you meet on your way up, for you may meet them on your way down. How can one individual muzzle and state manage the whole country for 22 years as the byproduct of his own family? The Gambians must stop to see such things happening in this country. The president is only a figurehead. People made the president a president. So the president cannot come and superimpose things on the Gambians, and we see it go like that. This is how we grow dictators. One will come as a president, and he's a very good man, but at the end, those who surround him will make him a wicked man. Exactly happens in the prehistory of the Gambia Jammeh's time. It started good, ended bad. The security personnel from the army, the joint security forces, the Gambia Armed Forces, the police, the national intelligence, the prison officers, the customs and immigration officers, I would ask you one favor. The uniform you are wearing is the taxpayers' money. The petrol you use, the machines you use have been paid from the taxpayers' money. Soldiers are not supposed to arrest people. National intelligence are not supposed to arrest people. The arresting team is only the police. Don't seize others' responsibility. Soldiers are meant to defend the country against external aggressions. But to use arms against your own citizens is uncalled for, unpalatable, unjust, undemocratic, irreligious, or in fact sacrilegious and abomination. Because the life you save may be your own. We hope and pray that the security personnel in the Gambia will never accept to succumb to the wills of executive, which is not in the interest of the Gambians. It has happened, it has happened. I will appeal to the Gambians. Let us exercise maximum restraint and patience. Because most of us today blaming those perpetrators today. If we were in that position, we would have done, if not more than what they have done, we would have done the same thing. Why? Because that time we have not known these evil things being done by those perpetrators. By the time you realize your mistakes, it is too late. So we appeal to the Gambians and the international donors to help this TRRC to make sure the TRRC does its work correctly. And then TRRC also, your recommendations will be like a gospel truth, will be our Quran, will be our Bible. We will trust it and we will take it with the truth. And with your recommendation is, we hope it not be like the Ghana Commission, when millions of taxpayers' money has been vested on this, at the end, the state put it under the carpet. That is not this commission of inquiries. That is not this TRRC council and Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have suffered a lot and we have all fought together to bring this Gambia to where it is today. So if you can see one person mostly the Gambians to use the Gambia as his own byproduct, Mr. Chairman, the Gambians should not sit to see that happen again in this country. We have worked with international organizations, international groups. We have seen how citizens have the rights to exercise their freedom. So if the Gambia is an exception to the UN Convention, Commonwealth of Nations, African Union, ECOWAS, to name but a few, we Gambians should not sit on our laurels and see Gambia fall in the hands of a dictator. I'm not saying Gambia should revolt against the state, but when it's necessary, the Gambians should engage the state in the dialogue. This dialogue will never fail because we believe we have professionals in the Gambia now. The soldiers, we have been in contact. I spoke to most of you guys, and I've advised you that your role, you know it. Intelligence, I spoke and advised you. Police, I did the same thing, and I wrote series of letters following this thing whilst I'm on asylum because of my experience here. I would advise Mr. Chairman and Mr. Council, it is really sad to notice that the Gambia is still going into the hands of a dictatorship again. I don't think we, the Gambians, should accept that again and again. Because the Gambia is ours. If we should accept the Gambia to go into the same system like the Jammeh's government, there is no need to go to school. There is no need for us to have a state. Instead, let's squash the Gambia to Senegal and let Senegal administer the Gambia. Because Gambians, most of the Gambians are selfish and egocentric. You are in a position you don't want to consider the people. Instead, you want to be egocentric just to feed your family and then feed your relatives. Poor people are only suffering. We are born poor, educated poor, we grow poor, we are dying poor. Those who are at the helm of the administration, Mr. Chairman, are abusing the offices, abusing our resources. We have the espionage section, we have the economic section, we have the subversive of the intelligence. What is their role, Mr. Chairman? Why can they engage the president on the level discussions to make sure The Gambia is ours. Let us respect each other. Let us respect the Constitution. Without respecting the Constitution, Mr. Chairman, it becomes sad because I, for one, being in Europe, I don't want to be in Europe. I want to home to kindness. I want to be with my family. I want to be with my loved ones. I want to contribute to national development. But how can I do that when I don't have the responsible government, Mr. Chairman? We want to have responsible government. We want to make sure those who are the helm of the administration consider the plight of every Gambian. We sacrifice our lives. We sacrifice our jobs, our studies to make what Gambia is today. We were arrested several times. We were tortured. We were beaten. We were beaten with guns, pistols. We were cased. Our families were deprived. Our friends were barred from working in the government because of because of their rapport with us. Our compounds were seized. Our assets were frozen. We had no fundamental rights in the Gambia. We cannot participate in neither socio, political, and economic activities in the Gambia. Mr. Chairman, it is sad. When I would advise the media to be very responsible, Mr. Chairman. You see, media plays a very important role in our nation now. But if the media is the one responsible for trying to create havoc in the country, it is sad to note that. This WhatsApp is a crime in the Gambia now. People use WhatsApp to say whatever they want to say, allege against people, make fabrications in WhatsApp today. Gambia is number 2 in West Africa that uses WhatsApp more than any other country. Gambia is number 1 today that uses Facebook more than any other country in West Africa. Why are Gambians wasting their time on these social media fabricating stories against each other? This is not the Gambia we have known. Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't take most of your time and your council members. It is sad that the Gambia is is going into the wrong hand, and we want the president of the country to sit down and make some reflections, where he was yesterday and where he is today.
I think we're having a lot of interferences in the system, in the audio system. I would suggest that the witness would send his address to the commission such that it will be taken into account. It's unfortunate that the public may not be able to hear everything that he had to say because of the interference. But I think it is important that what he has to say would reach the commission. So in that regard, I would recommend to him to send to the legal team the submissions, the closing remarks that he made, such that the commission would take a good look at it and see what can be learned from it and what can be used for our recommendations for institutional reform and so forth. But as it is, I think perhaps maybe we should just end it there and thank the witness for his time and for his views and opinions. I leave it to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council, and good suggestion. If he could send the text, which will be part of the record, we would make sure that that indeed is the case. Mr. Nyabally, thank you again very much indeed for your testimony and for the concluding remarks. We will take a short break and come back at 12:15 sharp. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much. Very much, my Council. Welcome back, everybody. Are we ready to continue our proceedings, my Council? If we are, please proceed.
Indeed, we are. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. Juve, so we can now begin your testimony. Before we start, I would like to administer the oath. So repeat after me. I, Omar Juve.
Okay. I, Omar Juve.
Do affirm that.
Do affirm that.
I will speak the truth.
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. We already spoke before, so you know that my name is Alhagie Nyabally. I will be questioning you today on behalf of the commissioners. I already note that there is a delay in the transmission, so let's be mindful of that, and I will allow you to finish what you're saying, and then I'll start speaking after a few seconds. I would also ask that you do the same.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. During my questioning, if at any point my questions are either unclear or you would like me to repeat, please feel free to do so. Just
Thank
ask
you.
me to repeat or clarify, and I will do so.
Okay.
For your information, there is interpretation in the hearing room into the local languages.
Okay.
Therefore, allowing each other to finish will ensure that we do not have overlapping speech.
I understand.
Perfect. For your testimony today, it will take 2 sessions, meaning this present session and the session after lunch. I am mindful of the fact that you have been working all night and you might have had maybe about 2 hours sleep before starting this testimony, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For your testimony, I will focus on 4 main topics. The first topic is about your who you are, so your biographical information, educational background, as well as work experience. Thereafter, I will focus on GAMSU as a student union body in the Gambia. So generally just about the mandate, composition and structure of GAMSU, as well as the ways in which information is disseminated, and lastly, the relationship with state authorities. For the third topic, it would focus on the events of April 10th, for the most part, and to some extent April 11th. We will talk about the incidents that led to the student demonstrations, as well as the meetings that you had with various state authorities. We will also talk about the executive meetings that GAMSU itself had prior to April 10th. And then lastly, the fourth topic would be about events that occurred in Dakar, Senegal. That would be our last topic. Do you understand?
Yes, I do.
So I will start with the first topic concerning your biographical information. Can you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Omar Diouf.
Can you tell us when and where you were born, Mr. Diouf?
I was born at Bakote in what used to be the Kombu St. Mary's Division. Now it's called Kanifing Municipal Area on the 4th of February, 1957.
Can you tell us a bit about your educational background, including which schools you attended and the years when you attended those institutions?
I did my primary school at Sukuta Primary from 1968 to 1973, during which period I did that if you look at that, you realize it's 5 years, because after topping my class in grade, that's primary one, I was made to skip primary two. I was taken to primary three, and I continued that way up to primary six. And I sat to the common entrance examination in 1963. I was top of my school, top of my class, and I'm among the best 10 in the country.
Just to
So
interrupt you there, you said you sat your common entrance in 1963. Would that be correct?
1973.
Indeed.
I
So
started
it
to
took
common
you
entrance
5 years instead of 6 years to do your primary education.
Exactly. Yeah, because the headmaster at the time, who was Mr. Charles Fowlis, thought that I could cope with after my first year. He thought I would be able to cope with the primary three, the demands of primary three. So he skipped me. I skipped primary two and went to primary three. I was disappointed in myself because I could not top the class that year. I came fourth, but from that point onwards, I topped my class up to when we started the common entrance examination. I topped my class, I topped my school, and I was among the best 10 in the whole country.
So I'd like to go through this quite quickly. Can you tell us where you went to for secondary education?
Travel from the primary school, after having done so well at the common entrance, I had opted to go to Gambia High School. So expectations were that I would go to the Gambia High School. But when I went to Gambia High School, my parents were not able to provide an authentic birth certificate for me. And so it was difficult for me to go through the process of registration. But at the end of the process, the principal of Gambia High School suggested that since my papers were not correct, I should go to Cravellan School. That was in 1973. So I went to Cravellan School also. Mr. Baji was there then. He looked at my papers and suggested that I should go to Form 2 instead of Form 1. So I started that one too in Form 2, and instead of 4 years, I did it in 3 years. That was in 1976. And again, I was on the merit list for the whole country. So finally, I went to Gambia High School.
So this time
I went
you
to
were
Gambia High
accepted
School
at Gambia High School. Can you give us the dates when
Yes.
you attended?
I went to Gambia High School in September 1976, and I was put in the Gambia High School had this A stream, B stream then. So because I came from a junior secondary school, I was put in Form 4B, which means I had to go through Form 4B, Form 5B, and then Upper 5B in order to do my O levels. So I went through that also, and did my O levels in July of 1979. And again, I was able to go to the sixth one.
So when did you finally complete your education at Gambia High School? That would be the A levels. When did you complete?
Yeah, I completed my A levels in 1981 at Gambia High School.
Thank you very much for that. I'd like to move on briefly to your work experience. Upon completing your A levels at Gambia High School, where did you work?
After completing my A levels, I went to the newsroom at Radio Gambia. I worked at the newsroom in Radio Gambia from early 1982 to 1984. Then I left Radio Gambia So I left Radio Gambia and went to what was the Gambia Commercial and Development Bank. I was enrolled there as a bank clerk. My first station, I was posted to the Grand Street branch, where we used to pay government salaries. And I was at Grand Street branch for a little over 1 year. Then I was posted to the Bakau branch.
So can you tell us when you finally stopped working at the Commercial and Development Bank? What year was that?
I stopped working at the Commercial and Development Bank in 1986, around sometime in April, March.
And thereafter, can you tell us what other job you held after the commercial bank?
I left the commercial bank and left the commercial bank by as part of my community. Part of my community work was I was part of a tactical committee in my community at Bakote. We had built an elementary school, a primary school there. So when I left the bank, I was also a member of that school committee. I was the secretary at the school committee. So I had known the headmaster for years. Like, he was one of my teachers at primary school. That was the late Suleiman Ju. So I was brought in to help teach in grade 6 because they had just lost one of their grades, primary 6 teachers. So it was not exact. It was about the end of September 1986 that I started teaching there.
And can you tell us for how long you taught at Bakote Primary School?
I taught at Bakote Primary School for 6 years, and in 1992, after having enjoyed teaching, and I decided to build a career in teaching. So I went to Gambia College in 1992, September.
And while you were at the Gambia College in 1992,
after 6.
Sorry, can you hear me, Mr. Ju?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Thank you. While you were at the Gambia College in 1992,
I'm hearing you.
Did you join any students' union?
Yes, I became part of the union. I did not become part of the student union only, but Gambia College had a number of other organizations. Like I first became the acting chairman of the Student Solidarity, Islamic Solidarity Association, and I was also made secretary of the Youth Front Against Drug and Alcohol Abuse, before I was eventually made president of the Gambia College Students' Main Union. This was in 1993.
And can you tell us for how long you held that position as president of the Gambia College Students' Main Union?
The tenure was for 1 year. It was an academic year, from 1990 to 1994.
Can you tell us what was your motivation for?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Can you tell us what was your motivation for being engaged in unionism within the context of student unions at the time?
Even at the sixth form, I was part of the student organization, and I started doing it even before I became part of the student organization. There, I was also part of the debate team at Gambia High School. So, and I was engaged in sports, in other community activities. So, and some of the teachers, some of the students who were at Gambia College knew about my activities in the community and previously in the student movement at Gambia High School. Sixth form, what did we call then the sixth form union. So I was identified and it was suggested to me by the previous by the one who was the president of the Students' Main Union, who was then Ibrahima Kanute and the others. So Ibrahima Kanute and the others, they were the ones who suggested that they would like me to run for president, Gambia College Students' Main Union.
And while you were president of the Gambia College Students' Union, did you also hold another position simultaneously in another union?
Yes, while I was president Gambia College Students' Main Union, I also became vice president of GAMSU. Now, this is how that went about. Before I became president of Gambia College Students' Main Union, there was misunderstanding between high school students and college students as to who was to be, as to where the president of GAMSU should come from. And as a result, GAMSU was not functional during those years. But in my campaign to become president of Gambia College Students' Main Union, I promised students that once elected president, we would go in a rapprochement with GAMSU so that we could have a functional National Student Union. In fact, I was made president Gambia College Students Union Main Union. I went through the polls unopposed, and then we immediately started contacts with GAMSU, and then we started putting the National Student Union together again and making it functional.
I'd like to focus on GAMSU itself as a student union body. Can you tell us a bit about what was GAMSU's mandate?
GAMSU was basically, since colonial days, basically it was mandated to overlook the welfare and the interests of Gambian students at the national level. It was as a result of its pre-independence background. It had an element, initially it had an element of, it was a pressure group, and at the same time, it was an interest group. So, and it brought together students from all over the country, but at tertiary and juniors, what used to be initially high school and junior secondary school. Basically, her mandate was to look after the welfare and interests of the students.
Can you tell us a bit about what were some of the ways in which GAMSU carried out that function in relation to student welfare?
GAMSU had two organs. It has always had two organs. That's the general executive and the central executive. And it has organs as well, like besides those two organs, it also has the social committee, advisory committee. Now, the social committee is mainly used for fundraisers and things like that, and the advisory committee is used in conflict scenarios because advisory committee's membership expanded beyond the student population. People in the larger community were also invited into the advisory committee as well. So we organize those functions. We organize here during the International Students' Day, which normally falls around the 7th of November every year. There are organized symposia and functions like that to kind of publicize student issues and hold debates on student issues, matters of student interest, basically. GAMSU also produces a magazine which is biannual, supposed to be a biannual magazine to kind of reach out to students and publicize matters of interest to Gambian students as well.
Thank you for that explanation. We've heard a little bit about the structure of GAMSU. So I would just like to focus on one aspect of that structure, which is the central executive. For the purposes of my questioning, can you just clarify if that's the highest organ of GAMSU?
Yes, it is the highest organ of GAMSU.
Can you tell us about the composition of that organ as of 1999-2000?
Now, it was basically, the membership was elected at Congress, and it was made up of the president, the vice president, the secretary general, the assistant secretary general. Then you had the treasurer, his assistant, the information secretary, public relations officer, and external relations officer. These are the elected members of the Central Executive Committee, but we also had what we call ex officio members, because they were not directly elected by Congress. They were elected by their respective subunions. That is the president of GTTI Students Union, president of Gambia College Students Main Union, and the president of MDI Student Union. But initially, the co-option of these ex officio members was is kind of a latter development. Because I don't think it was the case when I was vice president of GAMSU in 1993, 1993, 1994. It's a latter development that these people were also made part of the Central Executive. So generally, the Central Executive, as of the period you have had to, consisted of 15 members.
I would like to ask you a few questions about the membership in 1999-2000, and then we will address the relationship with the authorities and how that unfolded, which is something that you've just alluded to. So in 1999-2000, can you give us the names of the president, vice president, and the secretary general of GAMSU?
Okay. I was the president, Omar Diouf. The vice president was Alhagie Esda. The secretary general was Senabu J. The assistant secretary general was Daniel Davis. The treasurer was Alassane Cisse. I can't remember the assistant. The auditor was Sanusi Drame. And then you had the information secretary was Alhaji Kamara. The public relations officer was Usman Bah. The external relations officer was Babukar Jonga, and then you had this chairman of the advisory committee was Babukar An, deceased. His assistant was Mahmoud Njai. This is the members I can remember.
Thank you very much for that. Can you clarify if the Secretary General was Senabu J or Senabu Gay?
I was saying J.
J.
Sorry about that.
Thank you for that clarification.
J-A-Y-E.
Thank
J-A-Y-E,
you.
yeah.
You mentioned earlier that one of the ways in which GAMSU disseminated information to students was through the biannual magazine. Can you tell us what were some of the other mechanisms that GAMSU used to disseminate information to students, to its student body?
Traditionally, information was spread through, like when we had meetings, we also had, as of that date, we had, as of the period you have referred to, we had some very active regional organizers, and we would always also, and we had phone contacts with them, and we would always send information to them, to the regions also. We would do that, and by that time we had also acquired some. There was a cell phone for the secretary, for the president, and so that we had started using that modern technology to make calls and spread information as quickly as possible. Yeah.
In terms of information flow from the executive to the regional representatives, would that go through the information secretary, or would that be directly from the entire body to the regional representatives?
Most of the time they go through the information secretary, yes, and the information secretary works with the anything that had to do with the regional with our activities in the regions was directly under the portfolio of the vice president. So if we had anything that had to go to the regions, both the vice president and the information secretary had to be involved.
And generally, what was the format of the information that was disseminated? Was it written? Was it oral? Was it a combination of both?
It was a combination of all of those. Like we would send letters, we would make phone calls in the latter days. Yes, and we would also. Students are very good at spreading information by word of mouth. So we were doing all those things, all of them. It was a mixed basket.
What about access to the media? Did GAMSU have access to the media as a means of disseminating information to the student body?
Oh yes, any student experienced activists will tell you that the media is always a very potent source of means of spreading information. We had good relations with the media houses in the Gambia, and particularly when the FM station started, we were regularly invited on programs in the FM radio stations, and whenever we sought the opportunity to be on their programs, they had always responded positively. Even when the television started, and I think there have been occasions when we used the television and the national radio to spread information, because I can remember very well when we started the GAMSU Trust Fund project. The vice president led a delegation to the Gambia radio, to the television, and they had some very good program to disseminate information about the GAMSU Trust Fund and so on. So we had access to those things like the radio, television, and the print media. Yes, we had access to all of them.
So, Mr. Juf, in 1993 to 1994, you were the vice president of GAMSU. And then subsequent years down the line,
yes,
from 1999 to 2001, you were the president of GAMSU. I would like to have your perspective on the relationship between GAMSU and state authorities and how that relationship evolved to the extent that you know.
Now, I have had two stints. I mean, like I have been in GAMS twice. Initially as vice president, and then the time of the student demonstration in 2000 as president. Now, when we operated during two regimes, that is the Jawara regime and the Yahya Jammeh regime. The backgrounds, the environments were obviously different. During the Jawara regime, I think the politicians actually left us to ourselves and hardly ever interfere in anything we had to do. It was, I can remember all the way back to my high school days when we organized student demonstrations. When they were organized, they were mostly peaceful. And like I said, the politicians hardly interfered in what we had to do. But the problem in those days, surprisingly, was mainly coming from the technocrats, especially at the Ministry of Education, because I believe that they used the difference between college students and high school students in regard of who is supposed to be the GAMSU president is supposed to come from. They use it to kind of put in place their own agenda on the student movement, which I believe is to kind of put the student union under control. That was the case, but when the military regime came and they started the July 22nd youth movement, their focus, number one focus, was this movement. I remember when we had informed students about the advantages of staying non-partisan and the drawbacks in becoming partisan. So initially, when they tried to involve students at Gambia College in the July 22nd youth movement, is possible. We had sensitized students against becoming part of any political establishment. Instantly, the objective of the APRC administration and the APRC party became to involve students in their own activities, that is to recruit students and make the student movement partners in their own politics. So that's the different things.
So can you tell us a little bit about that, the efforts to involve students in the July 22nd movement?
Yeah, because I remember in 1996, around that time when they were forming it, our great sister Nyabally and Mr. Tamsir, they went to the Gambia College to recruit them, to ask them to join the July 22nd youth movement, but the students refused to do so. And but along the line, by the time I became president, by the time we took over the student movement, leadership of the student movement, GAMSU had a full-blown relationship with the APRC and the president, particularly through the July 22nd youth movement.
And when you
that
say
is
that
the situation
GAMSU,
we found in place.
Sorry to interrupt you. When you say that GAMSU had a relationship with the president at the time through the July 22nd movement, Who in particular are you referring to within the July 22nd movement?
Most of the activities from July 22nd youth movement and were mostly led by the late Baba Job. It was like the main link between Gamsu and the president.
So when you took over as president in 1999, did that relationship with the July 22nd movement continue, or did that relationship change?
It was the relationship as we came on. It was too close for comfort. It was definitely too close, and we were not comfortable about that, because students had complaining about the proximity in terms of the relationship. Students, they still want the union to be non-partisan, and they did not want Gamsu so obvious hand in gloves with the regime. So what we did as a national student leadership was we instituted what we call a system of quarantine. We decided that no student leader in the Gambia no one should go to Kandilai without authority from us, and nobody was to make contacts with the president, Baba Job, the July 22nd youth movement, my predecessor Fakuru Silla, and there was some other individual. I suppose the lady who later became the Minister of Information. This was it Fatu Fai? Yes, that was it. We also put that lady in quarantine because we thought she was also trying to use Gamsu for some other reasons. So we put in place a system of quarantine, and then that succeeded because we had only one problem. Was some students went to Kandilai without our knowledge. Some students in the leadership, and we wrote strict warning letters to all of them.
So although when you came in as a new executive, you put in place a system of quarantine, so preventing any contact between members of GAMSU and the persons that you've mentioned, other than yourself as president. Can you tell us whether you had a good relationship with the authorities in spite of that, or a bad relationship prior to March 2000?
Up to that point, when we started initially, we inherited a very good relationship. So we maintain it because, as I have already alluded to, we are a pressure group, but we are also an interest group. As I remember way back, we have had opportunities to explain this to the authorities, especially when Sana Sabali and the others visited us at Gambia College. But we had good relations with the regime because that was what we inherited. So we kept it, we maintained it. Now, when we made that quarantine thing, we instituted better contacts, improved contacts with the Ministry of the Department of State of Education. We started making monthly meetings with having monthly meetings with the SOS of Education, her team. So while we were trying to scale down our contacts with the political class, we were simultaneously developing contacts with the technocrats, because we felt that with those people, our non-party status would never be tampered with.
So you mentioned very briefly the meeting that GAMSU had with Sana Sabali. Can you just give us the date, and then we'll move on to other issues?
Yeah, we had that was during my first stint as vice president of GAMSU. That was at the Gambia College on the around the 19th of November, 1994.
So, as you said, you inherited a good relationship with the authorities, and this continued. Can you tell us? And now I'm focusing on March 2000. Can you tell us generally what your role as president was at the time?
Generally, as president of GAMSU, you coordinate the activities like I have explained. You are the chairman of this Central Executive Committee, so you organize those meetings in collaboration with the Secretary General. You build up your agenda, and when you get to the meetings, then you split the Secretary General, whatever is made up in terms of agenda, hand it over to the president, and you proceed with your meeting. And the president also coordinates the activities, follows up the whatever mandate or whatever assignment is given to other members of the executive committee. It's you follow up those things as they execute those plans on the ground. And like I have already alluded to, when it had to do with the provinces, you will always have to do that through the vice president and the information secretary. So yeah, generally that was I as president, I led most delegations. And if I do, there have been instances when I thought, because of my experience, I should allow the other members of the executive to, I should give them the opportunity to gather experiences as well. So I have mostly allowed them, the vice president, to lead delegations or to lead programs on radio and television, while I sit home and observe them, and later we meet, I critique them and give them advice and things like that. But yeah, the president was in everything. When the information secretary is publishing anything, or when he is, we also, part of our fundraising is to print T-shirts and things like that. The president would still be in touch with him as he does those things and everything else. And as president also, I had control over what was petty cash. Now, when I came in, there was both petty and transport allowance. I said, this is not necessary. I don't like it. I don't trust those proliferation accounts like that, because it creates chances for corruption and things like that. So I banned the transport allowance, and we retain the pass, which used for paying the fares of executive members as they travel to and from meetings and so on. So, yes, I had control over that to the peticas. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Juve. I'd like to focus on the events of March and April 2000, focusing first on the incidents that sparked the student demonstrations. Can you tell us about how you came to learn about those incidents and what measures were taken by GAMSU?
From around the weekend of the 9th, 10th, 11th, or was it 10th, 11th, 12th? That is Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I had come home from the provinces with some other members of the executive committee. We had gone out to sensitize students about the GAMSU Trust Fund. So when I came home, I found a note there from an ex-officio, a co-opted member of the Central Executive, Molo Sow, or is it Molo? That's his name, Molo. I can't remember the family name now. But he left a note to the effect that a girl had been raped at the Independence Stadium while there was, an inter-school sports competition was going on there. So that was that weekend when I returned home. That was what I found. But already, I was also informed by the vice president of GAMSU about the incident of a student at Brikama Foster's Senior Secondary School who was involved with some teachers and some fire and ambulance service officials and ultimately lost his life the following day. I have information from the vice president, but the information in regard of Binta Mane, I got that from a note I found home, and it was left there by Molo for me.
You've given us the name of the student that was involved in what happened at the Independence Stadium, the one that was allegedly raped. Can you give us the name of the student that you talked about regarding Foster's school?
That was Ibrahim Abari. Ibrahim Abari.
So can you tell us what are some of the measures that GAMSU took in relation to or in response to these two incidents?
Now, what we did was the vice president was in Brikama then, because he comes from Brikama. He was at the Gambia College as well. So we determined that he should cover whatever was going on in Brikama, and then I should lead my other colleagues in covering whatever was around, Banjul, Serakunda, Bakau area. So that was what we did. Now, when I had that information, about the rape case, what I did that Monday, I went to school at GTTI because I was attending lectures there. But after my lecture was in the morning. After the lecture, myself, the Information Secretary Alhagie Kamara, and the Assistant Secretary General Daniel Davis, we went to Banjul. No, on that occasion, I went alone. That was on Monday, the 13th. I went straight to the Ministry of Education and asked them about what had happened, and I discussed it with them. They had already been informed about it. So we determined there to go to hospital to look for the girl.
So
myself,
before you proceed to the hospital, Mr. Jufes, sorry to interrupt you. Before you proceed to the hospital, I'd like to focus on the meeting that you had at the Ministry of Education. Can you tell us who you had the meeting with?
When I had the meeting, it was the Chief Education Officer, was then Dr. Ja, and the Assistant Director of Education, Mr. Hassan Ju.
Do you recall the first name
of Dr. Ja? And there was a third party. I think it was Mohammed. I am not sure.
You told us that you went there to inform them of the incident regarding the schoolgirl who was raped at the stadium, but they said they were already aware of it. Can you tell us about more information about the content of those discussions? Now,
generally, what we did there, what we discussed was what to do about what to do that day about the girl. Where is the girl? and it was confirmed that we discussed that the girl was hospitalized at the RVTH, and then we decided what should be done. So, in order to do all that, at the meeting, it was decided that we should go to the hospital to check on the girl.
So prior
a
to
vehicle
you
was
going to the hospital with officials of the Ministry of Education, as far as you know, did they mention any steps that they had taken in order to address the situation?
No. Unfortunately, no. The unfortunate thing about this thing is that it was the student body that was initiating activities and actions all the time. So it was a result of my presence at the Ministry of Education that it was determined that we should go to the hospital to check on the girl.
Can you tell us who went with you from the Ministry of Education to the hospital, the RVH, as it was at the time?
I definitely, Mr. Hassan Juf was there. It was three of us went, but I cannot remember the other person's name. But I do remember Mr. Hassan Juf. Yeah, because I had known him by then.
Can you tell us what happened when you arrived at the RVH?
Now, when we got to the RVTH, we were told that the girl had been discharged. The senior nurse in the ward at the gynae ward where she was hospitalized, she pulled out the girl's hospital card and read what was written on it for us, which was like an explanation of what had happened to her physically, and in other words, she gave us information which was indicative of the fact that, or was evidence that the girl had actually been raped.
And very briefly, did she provide you any information about the condition of the girl at the time?
Yes, she said by the time the girl came to the hospital and when they checked on her, they found that she had been penetrated and that there were cuts and bruises on her genitals.
Mr. Juf, after that meeting at the RVH, where did you go next?
Now, we were told that the girl left with her teacher, her head teacher, and sports teachers, but they left for Gambia High School because Mr. Willika was also there, and because he was the chairman of the school's intersports committee at the time. So we thought they had gone to Gambia High School, so we went to Gambia High School first. When we arrived at Gambia High School, we were told that they had gone to Bakau Police Station, but that's because that's the police station with jurisdiction over the area in which the incident took place. So we proceeded to Bakau Police Station, where we found the girl, her two sports teachers, and the principal of our school.
Do you recall the names of the two sports teachers as well as the principal of the school?
Yes, the principal's name was Mr. Mendy, Mexican Mendy. I knew Ibrahim, the male sports teacher, because he was my colleague at Gambia College, Ibrahim Abba. And I remember the name of the female sports teacher because I ended up taking her and the girl to my place at Bako. Her name is Mariama Kamara. Miss Kamara, yeah.
Just a point of clarification. You mentioned that the name of the principal was Mr. Mendy. You mentioned the first name being Mexican. Is that correct? Is that what you stated?
I am not sure about that, but I think that was I'm not sure about the first name. I would generally call him Mr. Mendy at the time.
Okay, that's fair enough. This is based on your own recollection. Can you tell us what happened when you arrived at the Bakau police station?
Now, when we arrived at the Bakau police station, there were two things that we needed to do. One that they needed to do. One was the issue of a case file for a case file for the thing, and the other thing was we had this correction up of identification parade. So
sorry, can you say that again? What kind of parade?
The two issues: identification parade. I mean, because there was need for the girl to identify the person who allegedly raped her. So these were the two issues, but the most urgent one at that point in time when we arrived at Bakau police station was the case file, but they could not provide a case file. So, and I think it's because the person who was supposed to prepare the case file was not there. So they suggested that we come back the next day.
So can you just tell us who you spoke to at Bakau police station? Do you recall the name or names of the officers you spoke to?
Yes, we spoke to Station Officer Fofana. That's I can remember his name as Fofana. Station Officer Fofana. He was the station officer at the Bakau police station then.
I take it that you don't recall his first name from what you've just said now?
No, I cannot recall his name. No. He was S.O. Fofana. Now, at the end of the day, we were not able to get the case, and of course, the identification parade had to be planned in. It's not obvious to take place that day. So we generally discussed the identification parade, and I can remember emphasizing to the SO the importance of having the ID parade as quickly as possible. So this was a traumatized girl, taking her age into consideration, and if the identification parade to take long, it may have memory affected. So we discussed those things. It was concluded that we should return the following day, which was Tuesday, the 14th. So we had this issue of.
Please proceed.
Yes. You want me to say something?
No, I thought you had concluded. So I was going to ask, what happened after you left Bakau police station? Where did you go next?
Now, okay, there was this issue of where would the girl go, because the girl came to those areas with her teachers, so they were not sure whether she had relatives in the area, and the principal said she could not take the girl home, but the female sports teacher said she could not take her home because where she was being hosted, where she was going to be hosted, she could get space for only herself. And so I suggested I take the girl and the sport teacher to our compound at Back Hotel. So they accepted. So I went home with the female sports teacher and the girl, and they spent that night at my place at Back Hotel. But the interesting thing is, the moment we arrived on our premise, my mother, who had inherited, aspects of traditional midwifery from my grandmother, observed that the girl was in pain, because traditionally my mother would take newly married girls to their homes. And while they were being introduced into marriage, the physical aspects of marriage, he would be continuing to take them there and assisting them physically in terms of their bodily needs and so on and so on. So she was experienced enough in mind to understand the girl was in pain. So she asked whether she could help her. At that time, I was still with the officials from the Ministry of Education because we took them to Bakote in that same vehicle. So they agreed, and then I proceeded to Brikama with the same officials and left the girl at my place until the next day when we returned to Bakau police station.
So, of course, your mother having had experience in relation to people who were married for the first time, that's a different scenario from an allegation concerning rape. Of course, that's totally different.
Exactly, yeah. That was. I think what I'm trying to insinuate that is what happens whether people are raped or whether they are newly married. If, for example, in the Gambia, the fact of the matter is we celebrate virginity. So when girls are newly married, they wanted to identify that, and obviously when there is still an element or some aspect of physical injury that needs to be treated. That's what I'm insinuating here. I'm just trying to be careful with the language.
Indeed, I can tell. And your point is that she was visibly in pain. One could tell from just observing her. We have about 15 minutes left for this session. So you told us that you left the girl as well as her teachers at your house, and you went somewhere else. Where did you go?
I went with officials to Brikama. I went with them to Brikama because that was it was our mission to Brikama was in connection with something else. It was they were all teachers. So and I was a teacher as well. So it was about the time that they were giving out the 1x6, and they wanted us and the team that was given 1x6 in region 1 and so on had already left Banjul, and they were supposed to be in Brikama. So that was the reason I proceeded to Brikama with the officials from the Ministry of Education. We went there to get our 1x6 loan from the government.
So I'd like to proceed to the next day. You were told by the Bakau police station, the station officer, Mr. Fofana, that you should return to the police station the next day. Can you tell us what happened?
Yes, the next day we returned. When we returned, we found him actually at the auto. And the other, I went with the teacher and the female teacher and the girl, and the headmaster and the other teacher came to the station, and we met there, and then we went to Mr. Fofana's office, and Mr. Fofana called the person who was assigned to prepare the case file, and then the person had already prepared the case file by the time we arrived, so he brought the case file to Fofana, and he received it there, and we realized that a case file had been prepared. It was then that something very shocking happened. Mr. S.O. Fofana then, after having received the case file, took the phone, and made a call. It was those phones in the past, we had those phones, they were not digital, so when you're dialing it, you turn it round, the numbers round, round, round. And it was when you are very close to somebody using them, you could hear what they were saying. I was the closest sitting to Mr. Fofana because I was at the edge of his table. He made the call, and someone received the call, a male. When he spoke to the person and told the person that the case file had been prepared and was ready, the person told him categorically and very clearly to me to take it easy with this case.
You've already told us that you were sitting very close to Mr. Fofana, and so that's why you could hear what was being said on the other side of the line. Do you know who he was talking to?
I don't know who he was talking to because he did not mention a name. But apparently and obviously to me, he was speaking to someone up the ranks, someone higher up the ranks compared to him, because while they were speaking, he used the word sir, the title sir. He said, yes, sir. So from that room that he was speaking to someone of a higher rank than him.
So from what you've told us, Mr. Juve, Mr. Fofana called someone much more senior than him in terms of ranks and informed that person that the case file concerning Ms. Mane had been prepared and it was ready. And from what you've said, that person responded, quote, take it easy on the case. Is that correct?
Exactly, that's correct.
You told us that that was a shocking experience for you. Can you tell us why?
My interpretation of the case, I mean, like I am not someone who is normally pessimistic. I started to be pessimistic about the case from that point because I don't know why, but from that moment I started to suspect cover-up, and I was really.
I would still like to focus on the events in the office itself, Mr. Fofana's office. After he hung up the phone, was there any discussion about the conversation that he had just had on the telephone?
After he hung up, the first thing I observed about in terms of his body language was confusion, like frustration, like he has come against a wall. That was what I could read from his body language.
Did you or anyone say anything to him about what you had just heard from the caller on the other line, on the other side of the phone?
No, I am not even sure because I have never discussed it with the other parties in the office. Then I'm not even sure whether they have had it because I am sure no one has ever discussed it with them because I did not. So I don't know about them because the interesting thing is from that point onwards, as the leader of GAMSU, I became very obsessed about having a resolution to these issues than sharing any information with anybody which might jeopardize that attainment, because it was shocking to me, and I believe it would have been shocking to other people, other parties, if I had told them about it. So I kept it to myself and still believe that we could find solutions to these issues.
So just to make sure I understand, having heard a senior officer, presumably, a senior authority figure, tell Station Officer Fofana at Bakau Police Station to take it easy on Miss Mane's case file, your decision was not to discuss it because you didn't want to aggravate the situation. Is that a fair?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a correct assessment of my position. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much. What about the content of the case file? Did you at any point, were you informed of the content of the case file, or were you allowed to see the case file?
No, we were not allowed to see the case file, but we saw the case file physically, the physical file, and yes, and we left it with Mr. S.O. Fofana.
And as far as you are aware, based on your presence the day before as well as that second day at the police station, do you know if a statement was taken from Miss Mane at all?
At the police station, yes. Ms. Mane and the teacher, they all gave statements at the police station.
You mentioned that following the conversation that S.O. Fofana had, you sense a change in the attitude of the police regarding the case. Can you tell us more about that?
From that point, the next most important was the ID parade, identification parade. Now, this was on the 14th of March. Now, schools were going to close that Friday. Schools were closing that Friday because it was early the next week, and schools were going out on vacation. So, if, for example, an ID parade is not held between that Tuesday and Monday, then it means it would not be held again until people come back from the Eid, which was going to be on the 20th then. So it became very important to us, and I started to feel the pressure in regard of the very urgent need for an identification parade. But even after we pressed that, but they could not provide for an identification parade. They could not provide for an identification parade within that week, which means also that up to Monday, which means also that the victim and her teachers had to go back to the provinces and come back after Eid.
Did they explain why they couldn't conduct an identification parade prior to the holiday period?
No, they did not. That's what I realized about the case at that point. They generally had started dragging their feet in connection with the case. Everything, they started dragging their feet, and you absolutely had to put pressure on them. And in terms of the pressure, there was just, it was just about, there wasn't much that we could do at that point in time. So we just kept talking to them. So in fact, what I did was, after that, they went away. When we dispersed at Bakau police station, the understanding was there was not going to be an ID parade until after Eid, and we all dispersed. But I had to go back to the Ministry of Education the next day to kind of give them a situation report, because when we went back to the police station the following day, there was none of them there. So I went to Banjul again the following day to give them a report on this.
So from what you've said, you've kept the Ministry of Education abreast of the issues as events were unfolding. Can you tell us who you met at the Ministry of Education the second time around?
I would always meet mostly the deputy director of education, admin. He was admin, and the chief education at the time. Yes, Dr. Ja and Mr. Hassan Ju.
And what was the reaction of the officials at the Ministry of Education to your update?
They didn't like, of course, they didn't like what was happening. They did not like what was happening. I can remember them praising us, the student leadership, for, maintaining a system of continuous follow-up on the case like that on a daily basis. But from their end, they were not doing anything. They were not doing anything. They were just, I was going there, giving them information, and even when there was, an ID parade, I informed them of the time of the ID parade, and they sent one person to attend the ID parade.
So thank you for the information that you've provided regarding Miss Mane. She was, of course, very young at the time. It was her first time in the Greater Banjul area, so it's very helpful.
She was very young. I think she must have been 12, 13 at the time.
Indeed. So it's very helpful to have other people provide information from their perspectives. But I'd like to end that issue by asking one last question, which is concerning the identification parade itself. Can you tell us what happened when it was finally held?
Yes, the identity parade happened after Eid. The girl came down. I think that was, yes, almost a Monday after the Eid, and Eid was around the 20th, which was around about, I think it was on a Wednesday, yes. So the following week, they called us for the ID parade. And we went to the ID parade. I went there, and then the Ministry of Education, they sent one of their officials to attend as well. And the girl was there with one of our parents and a witness. So the parade was put in effect, and the girl went around and could not identify the person who allegedly raped her. But after that, we were all asked to make statements because the press was there as well. And my reaction was that an identification parade is not the last item in the police investigation toolbox. I told them this. I said, the police still continue the investigation through other means, because this should not be end of story.
Just to make sure I understood something you said, Mr. Juve, the press was present during the incident where the identification parade was being conducted at the Bakau police station. Is that correct?
No, it was at police headquarters in Banjul.
At police headquarters, but
yes,
the press
yes.
were present during that time.
Yes, it public. Yes, it was a public thing. We were not kept away.
Thank you for that clarification. I will leave it at that because we need to take the lunch break. When we come back, we will focus more on the meetings that you had with the authorities. You've already told us that it was your vice president, Alhagie Nyabally, who was involved in the issues concerning Mr. Ibrahim Abari. So we won't cover that, but we'll just move on to the meetings.
Yeah, Excuse me, I think I attended only one meeting in regard of that at Gambia College, yes.
We'll talk about that briefly and then focus on the other meetings you had with the authorities. Thank you very much for answering my question. Mr. Chairman, I hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma Council, and thank you, Mr. Juve. We will take a lunch break and resume at 3 o'clock sharp. Meeting is adjourned.